Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot. This is part of my 29 Days of Magic series where I interview a Black woman a day for 29 straight days. And today, I'm super excited to have Lisette Lavergne, who's a lawyer, producer, speaker, and life influencer. She has an amazing story, and I cannot wait for you all to take a listen. Hey, Lisette.
Hi.
Welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. So, as you know, first question is always the same, answer is always hilarious. Yours will be no different. So, Lisette, what was your first job?
My first job was as a babysitter after school. I would pick up these two kids, they were brothers. And I babysat them. And then eventually I babysat other children from my building. Their parents were musicians and they actually would perform in the opera. And so someone needed to keep their children. And so my mom was a caregiver and took care of children. And so I did the same. That was my first job.
Awesome. I love it. Listen, taking care of people and starting out their messes comes in really handy throughout everyone's career. So it's not surprising that's one you picked. So, okay, after an awesome job babysitting to where we are now, sitting and have this conversation, what's been that career journey?
Well, the career journey was actually my my dream was to be an actress. And so I started at a very young age in New York City, taking classes, theater classes. I was always involved in the arts. I took dance classes, modern dance, ballet. When I graduated college, I was a double major, theater arts and political science, because I also had a dream of becoming a lawyer.
Aha.
So I really loved both. I wanted that. I've always had that spirit of social justice, and I also love the arts. And so throughout college, I was in plays and I was involved in theater, but I also was really serious about political science and learning a lot about, the world, countries, politics, and how all of these conditions affected individuals around the world. So I always had that. Like I wanted to work for the United Nations. And when I graduated college, I realized that maybe I should start with the acting, like pursue the acting first. And I did. I did social issue theater. I toured throughout New Jersey, the state of New Jersey. I was with a touring company, the George Street Playhouse Touring Company, and I performed all over the state of New Jersey. And the plays were social justice plays. So one was basically, it was like anti-discrimination, and the other one dealt with alcoholism and how it affects children. So I did that for a while. I toured. And at a certain point, obviously, artists struggle a lot. And I still have such I have a lot of empathy for artists and such an appreciation for what artists do in general. And I believe that it's because obviously I was in that theater world. And artists just give so much so purely and they create. So I love that aspect of it, but then there was the business side of it. And eventually I felt very disenchanted and I decided to pursue. I always knew like the law would be there, so at a certain point I went through like a transition and I realized that I wanted to then pursue my career as a lawyer and I wanted to pursue that dream that I had of being a lawyer. And so I applied to law school. That was a journey in of itself.
Of
And
course.
I think a lot of people were surprised. So I'm the type of person that I believe in evolution. In the sense that you evolve as a person. Like you don't have to stick to one thing. You can try different things in life for a while. And I kind of see life like a play to a large extent, with or maybe like a TV series, in the sense that there's a lot of different episodes, there's a lot of different cycles in life that we go through. And instead of being afraid of it, I just think it's a great opportunity to reinvent yourself, to try new things. So, with that type of mentality, I embarked on my mission to get into law school, and I did. I ended up going to Rutgers Law School, which I am forever grateful that I went to one of the most diverse law schools in the country, to a law school that is known for public service and just community. And so throughout my life, I have always been exposed to a lot of different cultures as a New York City kid. My family also, my mother, we have a matriarchal family, and my mom always instilled in us equality and being open to all types of people. And so we are all like that. We've carried that, throughout my life. That has been a theme. And so going to law school was more of that, and it was really wonderful to attend Rutgers Law School. You saw many of us came together. There was like an Asian Pacific organization. There was the Black Association, Latino Students Association, and we would all come together. It was really great. There were also, Jewish students and other white European students, and we just had such a great community. My law school class in particular, we're still in touch, many of us. So that, I think, creating that legal community and the amount of support that we got at Rutgers Law during that time. And this is Rutgers Law in Newark, New Jersey. So I also was now in a different neighborhood, and the entire experience has enriched my life so much. And so after law school, then I went to my first legal job at McCarter and English, which at the time, McCarter and English probably had like 200 attorneys, and now it has like 400 plus, I believe. So yeah, so it was like the largest law firm in New Jersey. And that was a learning experience. I still carry a lot of the lessons from that experience with me. I think working in a big law firm, or one of the largest law firms in the state of New Jersey, there were a lot of resources available, a lot of training, there was mentorship, and it was really an experience where I grew a lot professionally. And again, another theme throughout my life is community, that sense of community. Because I come from immigrant parents, on my maternal side, I'm the first one that was born in the United States. So my siblings were born in Dominican Republic. And I believe that when you come from immigrant families, Caribbean families, we are so much about community. And so community is a big theme in my life till even still today. And so my first job was very challenging. I had never really even been to a law firm, honestly. And here I am working at this super prestigious law firm. There, I'm the first lawyer in my family. Back then, I graduated law school in 2002. There wasn't a lot of diversity at that time. Let's just
It
put
was
it
a little
that
different.
way.
A little different, yeah.
Yeah, it was a little different. We didn't have as much support in terms of, yeah, diversity, but I did have support, some support there, and I believe that as a result, I was able to grow, and I learned a lot about systems, and I learned how a law firm works, and how to be efficient, and how to write well, and you know just everything of a business, also by just working there. And you have billable hours, the structures. So I worked there, and again, it was a great experience in terms of growing, but it was also very challenging at that time, and it wasn't my comfort zone. There were a lot of sides of that corporate world that didn't mesh well with my personality. And so after a couple of years, I left. And I really took time to kind of search and figure out what my next steps were. There was a point where I worked with a sports organization, and it was basically promoting the business side of sports. And they were affiliated with Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition. So it was about equity. And we ended up going to Dominican Republic, and we did a conference jointly with Major League Baseball. So at that point, I explored that, field as well. And then I decided that I was gonna come back and kind of start working in the legal field again. So I did. I did some contract work at pretty big law firms like Fried Frank, and I worked on, it was like investments, basically private equity investments. I learned about that. And at a certain point, my heart was not in any of that, like helping rich people. It was like, I wasn't really interested, So those were some of my personal challenges where I grew up in a family where we're all about public service and we're activists. But I am happy that, I got to work in those environments because now I know. During this same time, I was always involved in community organizations. And so my sister and her friends, it started in our living room. They co-founded an organization that's still around today, Dominican Women's Development Center. And so I was always, volunteering. I was always exposed. I was always a very active member in my community in Washington Heights. And till this day, we're all still in touch and we're like family. So these were that was very critical in terms of how I kept evolving and how I kept making certain changes in order to feel fulfilled in my career. So after I worked at Fried Frank, as a contract attorney, I decided that I really wanted to do something that I cared more about. And some of the interest that I had was immigration, entertainment industry, because that links back into the artist, the creative side. And so I went out on my own eventually. I worked in other places, but eventually I decided that I needed to have my own law firm. That was a journey in of itself.
Oh, yeah, I
And
can see that. Wow.
ultimately, I ended up coming together with another lawyer, and he and I formed a law firm together, which we had for about 10 years. It started in New York, we expanded into New Jersey, and then into Los Angeles. And we had a radio program on Saturdays. We had employees. I oversaw the employees as well as I was lawyering employment based immigration. Employment based immigration gave me an opportunity to have that global perspective and to basically handle international cases and speak different languages. I'm fluent in Spanish and English, and I also studied French. So, by doing employment based and working with companies and individuals, I was fulfilling, some of that. And I also was working with employees. I love people. I have a lot of empathy for others. I am a people person. I really thrive by coming together with others. So having that law firm, we had to create the logo. You do so much as an entrepreneur. And I was on the
Mhm.
radio and I wore so many hats that I feel like I got an MBA. And, not all of it was positive. There were definitely challenges, when you are a business owner and you have employees that rely on you. And especially when you speak of an immigration law firm where some of your employees are immigrants themselves. So you feel this responsibility. You're worried about payroll. You're thinking
Oh,
about your clients also.
it's every single thing when you're an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yes. It's all of that plus that layer of feeling connected to these immigrants that you're working with as well as. So it can, I didn't just do employment based visas at that time. I also did VAWA cases where I basically worked with survivors of domestic violence that needed to get their green cards on their own. And so that was also very interesting and very fulfilling. I did gender violence based asylum cases as well. So our law firm was, there was a lot of, different types of cases that I was exposed to, and people and cultures. So it was very stimulating. Eventually, 10 years later, I started to want to go in a different direction. I ended up basically through challenges, and it was all a journey and a lot of
Life.
in, yeah, life and introspection. I ended up with Lisette Lavergne Law PC, which is the law firm that I have today. And I believe that law firm really is a reflection of how I want to make my mark and how I want to impact. Not completely, because I have a lot of different interests, but it's one of the major ways. And at this point, my law firm, I mostly work with extraordinary ability individuals. And so I have a lot of individuals that work in the entertainment industry and film and television, behind the scenes, in front of the camera. I have also equestrians. So, right now I'm working on a case for an equestrian that's a horse whisperer, and it's so exciting and so
Oh,
spiritual. But I have a range of clients that are, just extraordinary, and they deserve that. And so that's been great for me to niche out my law firm and kind of focus on creatives and, athletic individuals in those fields. It's been very interesting,
I'm
and
sure.
yes, and very impacting. And at this point, since I have my law firm and I niched it out, I'm also super interested again in traveling and spending time in different countries. I think as humans, we travel to other places and we do as much as we can. Like if you can spend a week somewhere or a few days, it all, I think, is very impacting. I like to really get to know more about the locals and the community and the culture and learn a bit about the language. So I like to spend time also, traveling. And that's something that from this year on, I really want to focus on, while at the same time being able to take a lot of my experiences and help others. So like speaking engagements, I think, we're at a time where our creativity, our voice needs to be heard. So documentaries, films, television, we need to really be creative, or tap into that creativity now. I think it's a good time.
Absolutely.
And
It's cool because like you've had such a really super varied career. It's like, okay, I'm going to do immigration law. I'm going to help domestic violence survivors, but then I can also help athletes. Most folks don't do that. So that's got to have given you a pretty unique view on the world, right?
yes, I feel like I have a panoramic view of the world. Like,
You've seen it all, and with all the little nooks and grannies. Similarly, I wanted to be an actress, I wanted to be a lawyer. So
well,
we had that in common. Then I wanted to be a writer and be a lawyer. But the law thing didn't work out. I ended up going to business school instead. But I get the same vibe from you. It's like, well, I want to use my creative powers for good, but I also like arguing with people. So
yes,
it comes in really handy. But you have those different challenges and journeys along the way as you try to figure out what you're going to do and what it evolves into. So talk to me about a time when had a challenge and you're like, there's no way I'm getting through this, and then you did.
wow. I've had a lot of challenges and a lot of victories. So let me see. So just boil it down to one challenge.
Sure, pick one.
I have to say, I'm going to stick with the most recent one. With more time, I would be able to discuss others. I think the most recent challenge was the passing of my mother 2 years ago. That challenge is hits differently than others. I think that for me, my mom was like the center of our lives to a large extent, the matriarch. And she was she was extraordinary as a mother who also touched many lives, like so many people beyond her children. And so her passing was challenging in a way that was just different because it wasn't just a career. I would say that has transformed me more than anything else in my life.
Mhm.
To get to the point where you're living life and your parents are not here, when that has always been something that you can count on, is a yeah, it's an existential challenge. And so I think that they were like the last 2 years I was in deep grief, and I was trying to find my place. I was trying to figure out, like, where do I belong? Like, because home is like where your mom is, kind of. I mean, I have my own home, but there's that comfort. And so having to really learn to live without her in the physical world and to kind of have our relationship evolve. And now to overcome that deep grief of, like, what do I do, to where now I'm talking to you and I am so grateful for life and I feel so much joy, and I think about her legacy and about my legacy, and I think about just how she would feel if I was sad or if I wasn't doing all that I could do or being all that I could be. So I would say that that has been the biggest challenge of my life, was to be able to really move forward and to embrace life fully the way that I am now, and having to establish a more spiritual relationship with my mom.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And, I'm so sorry. We get,
Thank you.
as we get older, it's the thing where, like, friends start to lose their parents, and it's just unbelievably hard, and there are no words, and how people grieve and how long it takes people to grieve. There's no clock on any of that, and how that transforms you in any number of ways is always an individual experience. And I thank you for sharing that, because I
No,
know that it will help folks.
yeah, that would make me feel so good if I could help others and let them know that you don't necessarily have to stay in that place, you know. But my life is really so much, it's really amazing right now, honestly. So,
So, thinking about all the stuff you've kind of been through and how you've been able to go through it, what does Lisette do for Lisette? What do you do for your self-care?
well, the reason I feel like my life is so amazing right now is because I'm really at the center of my life right now. My well-being is at the center of my life right now. And it has been for a while, but it was especially so the last couple of years. What I do for Lisette is everything from yoga to meditation to spending time with friends and family in a very consistent way, in that sense, really tapping into my Dominican roots, where we love to be around people and we love to be around each other. And we really take time to spend time with others and to come together, to eat, to laugh, to have drinks, to support each other in a way that it really feeds my soul. And I also love reading and writing. I just stay really active. I love going to museums. I love dancing. I do a lot of different things, but I would say that mostly I'm doing a lot of things that I enjoy, going to the ocean, going to yoga class, going dancing, meeting up with friends. And not because there's anything special, but really celebrating the people in my life, meeting up with family, making that trip to connect and to be present.
Awesome. Love that. So, do you have a give or an ask of the audience? And so this can be anything. It can be a bit of advice. It can be like, hey, here's a great book to read, or here's a really cool thing, an event I've gone to, anything you want.
Wow. Do I have an ask of the audience?
Or give, doesn't have, it can be either or.
I guess I would like to know, after hearing like my story, what would they want to hear more of?
I like
Like
it.
if I like if I were to write a book, do a documentary, do speaking engagements, what aspect would you like to hear more of?
Perfect. We will put that question in the show notes and see what folks say. Uh, Wonderful. Okay, and last question for you. What's one thing that brings you joy?
The ocean.
So the ocean, where? Which ocean? Or just oceans in general?
I would say oceans in general, but obviously I'm Caribbean. So, you know, um, I'm a little biased, and I think that the Caribbean in general has beautiful oceans, but I've also traveled and I've been to like Greece, and the Mediterranean Sea is gorgeous. Let me just say oceans in general with a look with a dash of bias towards the Dominican Republic, which has the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea, and it is like one of the most breathtaking islands.
Okay, fine. As someone who's Jamaican, I'll let that fly.
I love Jamaica, by the way.
It's okay. Like,
I did acknowledge my bias.
it's fine. We acknowledge our biases here, because there are biases. Like we
Yeah,
it's
I
all.
did say one of the most beautiful islands.
I love it. Lisette, you're just wow. You've had such a remarkable career. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your life lessons. I'm sure it will help a lot of folks. We'll put details in the show notes for folks to connect with you and answer that question about what more you should be talking about and what format that should be. And again, just thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure, really.
Awesome. And that is our show.